So, a major move forward in India's battle to extradite Tahawwur Rana, the Canadian Pakistani national, who, of course, was a major figure in the 26/11 attacks. After years and years of effort, it seems that Rana's extradition to India seems to be a agency, the NIA, has reached the United States according to numerous reports and is going to complete the final formalities in the paperwork to extradite Tahawwur Rana. Let's just go through the story, understand who this gentleman is, Tahawwur Rana, why he is accused of terrorism, and his role in the India. So let's go through it. Who exactly is Tahawwur Rana? Well, Tahawwur Rana is one of the prime accused in the 26/11 terror attacks case. You might remember, of course, that was the day when the city of Mumbai came under targeted attack from terrorists sent from Pakistan, and the Lashkar-e-Taiba, and this was a really devastating attack, killed well over 150 people in the city of Mumbai, and of course has left an indelible mark on India as well. Security, how it handles the security of its citizens, and how it deals with terrorism. It was a crisis that brought India and Pakistan, of course, was one of the main individuals associated with the planning of the terror attacks. Remember that he, along with one other individual, David Headley, was responsible for helping plan the attack. Tahawwur Rana, of course, was born in Pakistan, raised in Pakistan, and served in the come back into our story in just a little bit. But the two men spent a lot of time together, got to know each other in school, made were close friends. Of course, Tahawwur Rana then served, after which he deserted reportedly and fled to Canada, where he lived for a while, and then, of course, immigrated to the United States, where he ran an immigration agency called First World Immigration Services. That was also where he. Headley is a very complicated figure, mysterious in many ways. Of course, the two men were, both of them were, of course, very closely involved the 26/11 attacks. But David Headley, of course, was born to a Pakistani father and an American mother. He was raised in Pakistan for a while, and then he acquired this strange mixed identity. He was, of course, working closely with Pakistani intelligence agencies as well as terrorist outfits, but he was at the same time also suspected to be an informant for America's Drug Enforcement Agency and perhaps also other government agencies. We explain why David Headley is not the one being extradited back to India, but in fact, so he lived this strange life in the shadows, where he was at the same time a US government asset, but also working closely with Pakistan. But what happens then is that David Headley and Tahawwur Rana reunite when they meet in America, and over the course of the next couple of months and years, these two individuals start working much more closely together to reconnoiter and try to carry out a terrorist attack in India. And it was Tahawwur Rana that he used his agency, First World Immigration Services, to give David Headley a cover to allow him to come and work in India as a sort of immigration consultant, map out and carry out reconnaissance of the city of Mumbai in advance of a terrorist attack. He had planned the attacks himself, and of course provided cover for. In November 2008, these attacks happened. Just before that, in fact, the family, he claims it was for business purposes, but that. And Tahawwur Rana is, of course, also arrested. But he was then, in fact, released because, on lack of evidence, he was actually acquitted because of that, which, of course, this case. But then, of course, he was rearrested for another case, which was to do with an attack on a Danish newspaper, which was reportedly being planned again on carrying out this attack, which in fact would have involved, by some reports, the beheading of Danish journalists who had written in a way who had questioned, of course, something. for that particular case and then sent to 14 years in jail was David Headley, the individual, of course, who was really one of the individuals most directly responsible for the by the American government, and he agreed to a plea deal. He was, of course, sentenced to jail. He was made to testify to India regarding the terror between India and the United States, primarily because, of course, the sense was that because he had had a past history of working with the US government as an asset for the Drug Enforcement Agency, perhaps other US government agencies, and US government about the flow of drugs into the United States, it was seen to be deeply embarrassing for the United States that there were serious concerns because there were also visits made by Headley to India after the attacks had taken place, and India was not told by the American government that these visits had an issue that has caused a great deal of tension, friction between India and the United States, a lack of trust in some cases as well. Extradition is important because, of course, India was not able to get David Headley. He signed a plea deal with the United States, but he will not be extradited to India because he has had a plea deal with the United States. But as part of that plea deal, he in fact sold out his colleague in this him, and of course US courts were then convinced, in fact, that there was a lot of information against Tahawwur Rana. So in 2019, the Indian government put together an extradition application, went to the United States and said that we would like to extradite. Released in 2020, very briefly, but then he was rearrested as well because he posed a flight risk. He was then put back into jail where he has been, and he has spent the last couple of years fighting these efforts from India to extradite him. He was, of course, in 2023, I believe, India, but then he again filed numerous legal challenges that went to the United States Supreme Court, which last year were dismissed. Again, he filed another emergency petition to stall his extradition to India. He alleged that he would be. He said, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Pakistani, I will be tortured if I am sent back to India. And the US government made very, very clear, the US courts made very clear that they were not amused by that argument, they did not buy that argument, and the decks were cleared finally for his extradition, which is exactly what is going to happen now, which is how we've gotten here, where with the United States government to extradite Tahawwur Rana, bring him back to India so that he may now face justice. Now, to India, he's going to be taken to the NIA headquarters. He's going to be interrogated. He's going to be questioned about a number of matters. But again, it brings to an end a 15-year-long saga for India, some measure of justice, perhaps after almost 7 attacks happened. We'll be approaching, in fact, the 17th anniversary of the terror attacks this year on November 26th. A long judicial proceeding, in fact, in the United States. Is of course going to investigate, is going to question Tahawwur Rana once he is sent back. There are some questions about when exactly he's going to be sent back, because some paperwork still needs to be sorted out. It still needs to be done, but there are also questions about whether he will in fact be sent to Tihar jail and he's going to be placed in a high security ward pending further legal proceedings. At this point in time, of course, Rana is in custody in a detention is where now situation at this point in time on the extradition. We will keep you absolutely updated on the story. We have a number of fine experts here at India Today sitting down with you to explain the history of this case, what exactly is going on. Us our editor, who covers, of course, a lot of issues related to India's agencies, investigative agencies, internal security, and we're going to be sitting down with him later in the day to discuss the Tahawwur Rana case, as well as when we can this live. We wanted to walk you through the basics of the case, why this is important, and how long a battle this has been for India, which now at least seems to be drawing to a successful close. Thank you again for joining.